today's webinar. Today we'll be talking about, how can universities prepare themselves for the new world, because education is changing. So the topic of today's webinar is winning strategies in an online world. Well, I would not take a lot of time, but I'll just quickly tell you a couple of things that with us, we have 4 speakers, and Shantanu will be our moderator. He has been moderating India Education Forum's panels since last two times, I think. So yeah, thank you we are really happy to have you here. So now I see everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, right. So perfect. So let me just introduce all of you to our speakers today. So with us, we have Professor Dr. N. Krishnan. He's the Vice Chancellor of Madurai Kamraj University. With us, we have Professor Jayant Sonwalkar. He is the Vice Chancellor of MP Bhoj Open University. With us, we have Neeti Sharma. She leads Team Lead Skills University. This is one of a kind university because they work towards skilling India and all of that. And she'll be telling us more about it during the session. And with us, we have Shantanu Rooj. He is the founder and CEO of School Guru EduServe. So he's the moderator for our event today. So over to you, Shantanu. Please take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rana. So kind of you to give our introduction. So the topic that you set up, which is winning strategies in a digital world. My thoughts went all over the place. The COVID crisis is definitely an important health crisis, but it has also led to severe crisis for lots of us in many sectors, including education. The lives of the students, the campuses, the faculty members, teachers, I think everybody is going through a severe disruption. We have never seen something like this ever in our lives. We also know that owing to this crisis, the next 25 years, which is led by changes in the workplace, the regulatory cleanup, which is going to happen, the rise of entrepreneurship, the domestic consumption, all of this put together, looks like the next 25 years are going to be very different from the last 25 years that we have all seen. Digital is going to be the new norm for sure. We are seeing the COVID-19, due to this particular crisis, we are seeing the greatest transformation in the workplace of our lifetimes today. But I'm not too sure that what does the future hold for all of us when it comes to education? Is it physical classrooms or online sessions? Is it text or multimedia? Is it going to degrees or apprenticeships or skills? Is it going to be study and then work, or is it going to be continuing education or creative combinations? What, in your opinion, sirs, does the future of education look like? My first question to you, Professor Krishnan, I'm going to come back to all 3 of you with the same question, though I would like to know your opinion about what, in your opinion, is the future of education look like? Professor Krishnan, would you like to take it up?
Good afternoon to everybody. I could see the Somaseka, Sonia, Niti, and also Santanu, and also that all the people here. I feel that it's a wonderful platform to discuss about that. How the online platform is going to help in future. Before I am coming to this one, the COVID problem is severe, particularly in Tamil Nadu, particularly in Madurai. So we are all one way safe in the university. But I'm very happy to tell that all the hostels were taken by government of Tamil Nadu. By that we are accommodating, today we are accommodating near about 258 infected patients inside the university. But I can say that it's not going to spread by air, because last 10 or 20 days, the infected patients are staying here. But our people are living inside the university, including Vice Chancellor, because Vice Chancellor Bangla also inside the university. But people are very happy and they are not afraid of it. The patients are staying in Madurai Kamraj University hostels. But villages, I can say, earlier thought that it's going to available only in the township of Madurai. But today, all the villages are now affected one by one. So yesterday, nearby one police station where it's 3 kilometers away from our university, the sub-inspector died because of the co-virus.
Mm-hmm.
So such a situation is going one side. Another side, the people are having psychosociological problem, where because they are afraid of that virus, we are giving some training through NIMHANS Bangalore. How we can, train the people not to afraid of the virus. At the same time, you have to be safe yourself like that. We are telling like that. But still, the people are thinking that the village people, my own village people, they think that it's spread by, birds, or it spreads by air, or so on and so forth. This is one side is going. Second, now if we are coming to my topic, our topic is what for discussion. Number one, even that Honorable Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal, when we are talking with all the Vice Chancellors, that time I put a message saying that, yes, online, yes, everybody is accepting. There is no problem. Because already we have the training on SWAYAM, MOOCs courses by online. Because online is going to help us. The Nobel Prize winners or the experts in the particular field, it's not possible to come through your university directly, so they can give some courses by online. By that, students can register it and then they can study the subject through the expert, what we call the study through the online program. But my worry is, I don't know about that other people in other university. My university is actually surrounded by 75 villages. The campus, we have 3,000 to 4,000 students. So they are coming from the nearby villages. But if you are seeing that, even the paper Hindu in Tamil Nadu, they reported that only 14% of the rural students are getting connected by internet. Right? So what I requested the Honorable Minister, there is no problem to start that courses by online. But the technology should reach that each and every corner of the village. Then only whatever we are going to give through the online, it's going to be a successful one. But I am not comparing Mumbai, or I am not comparing Delhi, or I can't compare the Chandigarh, where the things are different story.
Okay.
Another thing, this, experts are here. Kindly give some attention where the education, the students are coming to the university or colleges, not only for getting the education, not only going to get the richness in the knowledge. Other than that, very important thing, they are going to learn the culture. How to mingle with the students from that different category. How to mingle with the students. How to stay, even though you are living in a sophisticated houses or with more affectionate parents. When you are going to come to the hostel, you learn that how to behave in the hostel, how to mingle with the friends, and how to take the food available, whatever available in the mess, how to sit, how to eat, and so many things. Other than that, we are roaming here and there with so many group of people, different subjects.
Yeah.
The interested candidate, they can mingle themselves. Because if I know that I am a biotechnology professor, I want to know something on statistics, I want to know something on economics, something on mathematics, where I can go directly to the department, I can learn from scratch, whatever I need for my research. That type of opportunity will not be there when you are going for completely online. Yeah. That is my view, but I don't know, we can have the discussion.
Yeah.
Other than that, what we feel that when you are going for the courses, online courses, of course, we are having the virtual practical rooms. Yes, you are right. But is it true for all the experiments what we are teaching in biotechnology. How we are going to teach the practical classes.
Yeah.
And also the project, what they are doing. It's a very important thing. Because I mean, so many meetings I told that India already poor in hands-on training. I'm sorry to say. Because in my house, I am telling this example to so many places. My brother is having 3 sons, all are the electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and the computer engineers. But when they are coming to my village, there is a problem in the electricity.
Yeah.
But they are calling the electricity people, not they are doing anything on that, what you call them. Even, I mean, making the fuse set right. So that things are there.
Yeah.
Right? And apart from that, how we are going to maintain the social systems? Because Professor Jayant is there. If you are taking any university, classroom strength is only 40. Any course I am saying that, for example. So the 40 students can have the 40 seats inside the room, in a classroom. But how I am going to maintain the social systems when I'm going to ask my students come to that what you call in the college. That your online is wonderful. That is no problem. But even I am joking, by joke I can tell to my professors, I hope the future is going to come. We are going to have the class under the tree.
Yeah.
Like Nalanda is having that classrooms like that.
Yeah.
So this type of discussion, how we are going to, mingle with the student.
Yeah.
It's very, very important rather than your education.
Completely agree, sir. Completely agree. The social skill sets that you talk about.
Social skill.
Yeah.
How we are going to come out with a solution for that.
Yes. Yeah.
So these are the things, some of the points I put forward to for discussion.
Agree with you completely, sir. You're talking about that.
Other Professor Jayant and DC can add up this one.
Yeah.
I can come forward again to have the discussion. Thank you very much.
Professor Sonwalkar, Dr. Kishan spoke about a future of education, possibly which has got a theoretical knowledge along with that, a blend of skills education. He talked about how social skill sets for students are very important, how they learn not only from the teacher, but also from each other. What is, in your opinion, the future holds for all of us when it comes to higher education?
Look, it's a very complicated question because like Alvin Toffler, we cannot write a book on future shock and we cannot just tell what is going to be there in the future because none of us even expected in January that we'll be locked down for 70 days and we'll say 80 days or 90 days and again there will be lockdown in the month of July again. So we never expected. Anyway, I think Professor Krishnan has already taken up a lot of issues on what will be the future of education. So, of course, there is a dichotomy. There are 2 levels of questions. One level says everything can go online. Another level says everything can go online, but you have to have a personal interaction of the people inside the class or outside the class. And that's why the blended model has been arrived by most of the US universities, UK universities, and European universities, where they say that most of your education will be online. You read at home, you do assignment at home, but at the beginning of the session, you come and see your classmates so that you can meet them, you can talk to them, you can interact with them, and you can have a feeling of a classroom. Then go back to your houses or your countries. Similarly, IIMs do this experiment for the last 10 years. They are doing executive program, 1-year executive program.
Yes.
Where they are asking 10 days in the beginning of the session, 10 days in the mid of the session, and 10 days at the end of the session.
Yeah.
So they are also experimenting with this, and they got a very good results out of it. And most of the time they are online, this executive program, which are blended program and which are a mix of online plus distance.
Yeah.
So plus classroom. So it has been very successful in India. So the real model, what we are going to be developing in India, or what will mature, we do not know. But most of US universities failed in putting 100% online courses, as you know. And they started from 2001 to 2010. and rather 3,000 universities started, and hardly there with a completion rate of 40% or 50%.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. So India, this psyche is different. We have been hearing about Gurukul system. We have been from Gurukul system. We need still, whatever happens, still we have some hope for respect for Guru in the class or teacher in the class. So we need to see who is teaching.
Yeah.
So like with WebEx or Zoom or whatever, Google Class, whatever methodology or medium you use, you will be able to see who is your teacher. You will be able to interact, talk to him. But there is a need to go for personal interaction amongst the people. And for that, we have started, the answers are chat rooms, interaction rooms, or discussion forum, discussion boards. They have come.
Mm-hmm.
So online will come. But what will be the percentage of online people will take online in India? It is still not sure.
Yeah,
and,
I understand.
And sorry, and let me finish quickly. So what will be the format of online is also not sure in India.
Mm-hmm.
It has to yet mature, and as we say that technologies are same, but its application is culture bound.
True.
So as Professor Krishnan has already talked about a great deal on what is Madurai Kamaraj University, how many villages he is surrounded with. So he's concerned with his social web.
Absolutely.
What is around us, and what are we going to do with the people around us. So the objective of education is not only to teach, to educate people, to give them information, to make them happy, to make them self-sufficient, and so on and so forth, beyond theoretical education. So that is what he was referring to. So similarly, things will come up. Urban cities, I'm sure the rate of online education will go very fast in urban cities. My grandson starts using in the class 4th or 5th, he has started taking online classes. Of course, he gets bored very quickly. He said, Nanu, maja nahi aaya, Dadu, maja nahi aaya. So I'm not happy with what is going on. So, but still he attends. Yeah. So things will mature in India, and I cannot say with confidence what will be the future, but online is growing. Online exams are growing. People are going out of 993 universities, 150 universities have already conducted a pencil and paper test. 150 universities have already conducted online test.
Yeah.
So rest of the universities are still debating as to what is to be done, what is not to be done.
Correct.
Because I just received a call from West Bengal Open University's Vice Chancellor this afternoon.
Yes.
And he was asking me, what are you doing with your students? How are you going to take exam? I said, we are yet to decide because our decision is lying with the government at this point of time. So we are not sure. But whatever happens this year is an exceptional year in the history of mankind.
Yes.
But leave this year, your use of technology is going to grow is undoubtedly true. Use of computer is going to grow is undoubtedly true. Use of online sessions are going to grow is very true. So this is going to be a part of our system. This is going to be new normal. That today I'm taking maybe in a semester 85, 90 classes in classroom. Now tomorrow I'll take only 35 classes in classroom and rest of my classes will be online.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is going to be my take on
so well said.
The future of education.
So well said, sir. I mean, a few things that what I heard you clearly is, one, you're saying that in the short run, the future is unpredictable and unmodelable. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen. But one thing that came up surely is in what you said is that the digitalization of education is going to play a key role in times to come. Absolutely. The future looks like a blend of an online and an in-class type of a session. And Professor Krishnan also pointed out the fact that this in-person sessions are so important because it creates bonding, it creates interactivity, and it creates social learning amongst all of these learners and the students. My next question to you, Mr. Sharma, is in all of these stuff that we all heard and the background on of these, and you run up India's first private skills university. What, in your opinion, does the future look like? What role is skill development? What role is apprenticeships? What role is on-job training going to play in the future of education? What's your opinion?
Thanks, Shantanu. Very interesting to hear Professor Krishnan and Professor Sonwalkar share their views, and I kind of agree with them, and I'll pick up the threads from where you left, with your first question on, will there be a combination of classroom and online? Will there be a combination of classroom and apprenticeship, digital plus physical? The last 4 months, all of us have gone online, all of us have gone virtual, and like what Professor Sonwalkar said, that the next 4 to 5 months, or maybe this academic year, may be very different than what it will be for the next few years. At our university, not only even pre-COVID, we were actually doing a lot of combination classes, like the word terminology you used, where we did not only did campus programs, but we did a lot of apprenticeship programs linked with on-site programs. So faculty members going to the organizations, skilling people while they're learning on the job, while they're earning while learning, and a percentage of time where the students come back to campus and learn.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, it had given us a good model, to increase, employability of our students, because I think that became our primary objective, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about how do we connect learnability, continuous learning, and employability, and eventually get a student a degree, because that was the prime objective. They started coming to us, right? We believe that the future of universities or education in India will be flexible in nature, which means a student or parent will have the choice to decide how I want to learn, when I want to learn, right? And where I want to learn. Right? Do I do online class? Do I go to campus? Do I do some online, some on-site? Right? So that, I think that's one aspect. The other aspect is, I guess, who's funding my education? So far, either the government is funding, public universities, or students and parents are funding private universities, which means we are not able to scale. Right? I mean, then it becomes restricted to whether somebody can pay or somebody can get into a public institution. What we are saying is, let's say if a student also gets to work on the job or learn on the job, right? Either the employer can pay for the degree, or the student can partially pay for the degree. So there has to be multiple models. Obviously, the future is unprecedented. We don't know when we're going to come out of the current situation, right? But I think there is a lot going. And I completely agree with what the previous speakers spoke, that I think while COVID is here to stay, university campuses are here to stay as well.
Absolutely.
It's not going away. Probably what will change is the definition of or let's say, how do you define a purpose of a university? So probably the purpose of a university would be for more collaborative, assignments, or for more social interaction of students, rather than just pure learning, right? Because I think we need students to come together, learn a lot of aspects jointly, and maybe a large part of learning can happen from wherever they are.
Amazing.
That's my current view.
Lots of food for thoughts. And so at this point, I would like to ask the same question to the audience here. Rana, would you bring up the first question on the opinion poll? What does the audience think about the future of education? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be in class? Is it going to be blended? Can you bring up the first poll question for everyone?
Yes, here is the first poll question. I hope you all can see it.
It's done.
So you have 30 seconds. The question reads that, according to you, what will be the future of education? Will it be fully classroom, fully online, or blended learning? Yes, I see people voting in. We will wait for 30 seconds and we will stop the poll.
I have already voted.
While people are still answering this particular question, sirs, I hear, all of you had very interesting insights, but I have a different perspective on some of the stuff that you said. Colleges aren't what they used to be about 50 years back. The value of it, the signaling value of a degree has depreciated over time. Today, if you look at some of the statistics all across the world, close to about 60% of the taxi drivers in Korea are graduates today. Close to 31% of the retail checkout clerks in the United States are graduates today. And even in India, close to about 15% of the higher-end security guards are graduates today. Degrees do not mean the same thing that they meant about 50 years back. Right? Largely because these degrees are not leading the youth to the ultimate or possibly one of the most important outcome that they're looking for, which is employability. Youth across the world are getting tired of degrees that do not lead them to jobs. And employers at the same time are catching on fatigue looking at employees who do not have skills. Right? Return on investment in education is declining over the last few decades. In the background of all of these, what, sirs, my next question to you, Professor Sonwalkar, is, in your opinion, what do you think is the future of universities in the new scheme of things? What role do they need to play? How do they need to transform themselves?
Shantanu, can we just launch the result? We are ready with the result.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please go ahead with the result.
Yes. So here you see, yes.
Wow. 93% of the audience agrees with all our panelists, says that it's going to be largely blended and digitalization and technology is going to play a very important role for all of us. In the background of that, sir, Professor Sonwalkar, my question to you still remains the same. What do you think lies as the future for universities in this country?
No, I'm very clear. Future of university is very bright because all universities provide good degrees. They are rethinking, everyone is rethinking. Our education policy has come up, new education policy has come up, and it is trying to connect to the life skills, and especially when Niti ji is there, so we can think of skills that now even new education policy is thinking of, instead of giving only a degree, trying to give them skills. So we'll come back to a skill era again, and that what will make Indian degrees more prestigious out of India, which is now less prestigious, as you have been saying, that they are just more paper degrees. Everyone is educated. But I don't see anything wrong. If the guard is educated and graduate, he should be graduate. Actually, I don't think if my peon or my driver is postgraduate, I would love him to get postgraduate degree. So that's okay. There are it's two ways of looking at the same thing. But as far as the value of degrees, more life skills are supposed to be imbibed, inculcated, and developed in the students while earning the degree, so that they can earn their livelihood out of the graduation degree. Earlier, what they used to say, he is MA. That's more than enough to say that he is MA. But now, who is MA? It's 4 kilos MAs are available. So, so that MA is no more any important. So that's not the true case, because it has, of course, gone down to some level, but knowledge is knowledge, and I do appreciate, because you see, even today in the world, there are some Arabian degree universities and other Czechoslovakian universities which are live for the last 900 years. Universities are live, and for the last 900 years, those universities are offering degree. So our universities are going to live forever. We may not live, but they will live, and degrees will continue to be important aspect of university education life cycle of a student.
Thank you so much, sir. Contrasting this with one of the recent books that I was reading, sir, by Dr. Pankaj Chandra. I think he's in Ahmedabad University currently. And he wrote this interesting book called Building Universities That Matter. In that, he says that there are 3 important purposes of education. The first one is to create better citizens for the country. Second one is to pursue one's own learning or own passion of learning. And third is to help people earn their livelihood. And I'm not too sure how universities have performed the first 2, but on the third one, for sure, employers have a complaint that universities do not produce the type of students or type of employees that they're looking for. My next question to you is, Mrs. Sharma, to you, is how important do you think in times to come? Is it important for universities to focus on the ultimate outcome of the education that is provided to the students? How important is employability in the scheme of things?
Well, I think from our university perspective, outcome is the only goal that we actually follow. And for us, the goal is praying to one God, which is jobs. So if you say the outcome has to be employability and the outcome has to be for the student to get a decent wage employment, I think that's the most critical thing. And I'm sure most universities have started thinking in that line. Even the new education policy, includes skilling as part of the curriculum because, students need to know what the employers look for, right? Having said that, I don't think employers are really looking at absolutely ready-made students who can be productive day one.
Yeah.
Right? But a student who can read, write, have analytical skills, understand math, right, in the right manner, obviously, right? So like, when Professor Krishnan said electrical engineer, can the electrical engineer do basics of
Absolutely.
of the trade that he or she is learning?
Absolutely.
I think that is absolutely important, and that's where the relevance of skill comes in. You also mentioned signaling value of a degree.
Yeah.
Right. I think in India that's not going anywhere till the time we are willing to marry our daughters and our sons to plumbers, fitters, electricians, Uber car drivers. Because till a decade ago, vocational skills was always for somebody else's child, not our children. I think it's important for our students to learn skills and also earn a degree. Employers have to agree to balancing between a degree and a skill, so between knowledge and skills, right? If it so a graduate, I mean, even if you look at any government recruitment advertisement, the first criteria is minimum graduate.
Yes.
So if we are not able to change that, I don't think a signaling value or a need of a degree is going anywhere.
Very well said.
And like we keep saying, degree nahi hogi to shadi nahi hogi. First get a degree, get a job, get married, baki ka dekha jayega. So I don't think the need of degree is going anywhere, but I think the need of creating employable degree holders, I guess, will become the need of the hour for all the universities.
Very well said. Thank you so much. And Professor Krishnan, my next question is to you. And I also read one of the attendees wanted me to ask this question, and it actually resonates with the same question that I wanted to ask you. Now, as we are all aware, a classroom is as good as the teacher who actually mans that classroom. An institution is as good as the quality of faculty members that I have. In India, just before COVID, not more than 10% of the 15 lakh higher education professors have ever taught anything in the online space. They have just been jumped into it. They have just been pushed into it without much preparation. How important do you think is, in your opinion, should universities, it's important for universities to focus on training their teachers, training their faculty members to use technology to the optimal and bring effectiveness of learning?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question. I actually, every day I am thinking about it. Why? Because if you are seeing that in India, we have more than 900 universities, 45,000 colleges, more than 200 research institutions in India. But none of our university or college or research institution are not reaching the proper ranking. If you are looking into that scientific input, whether we have the good scientists in India, yes. We have the good publication in India, yes. We have that grant for doing research, yes. Government is doing. But where we are lacking or failing in our duties, we are not taking the excellence in the higher education. Convert into innovation. Madam rightly told that. The innovation not reaching to my society. When my higher education is not going to help to my society, then why I have to go for higher education?
True.
That is a very big question.
Yeah.
But what the people are doing, for example, 20 years back, I joined as a lecturer. Then I am preparing the notes, following some biochemistry book and taking the notes. Even today, they are teaching the same notes what they have taken in their books. Even the papers are changing into the very ugly nature. But the notes paper is having in their hand and I am teaching. It will not help in future. My view it is, my personal view. What I try to tell them, this higher education should go culture-oriented higher education. I hope to see that what the people are looking for. Because as I told them half an hour before, when I am electrical engineer, I should know that what I am going to give to my society. Society where it started in my house. Right? So that skill, for example, again I am coming to Madurai Kamaraj. I told that it's near about 75 villages around. If I am seeing that what helped the Madurai Kamaraj University, extended to my village is nothing. They produce that maybe BSc or BA degree holders. But whether they improve my village, if I am asking, I can say no. Right? So, what I try to tell that my teachers should associate it with my society. Right? Even my village people are not getting the good drinking water. As I told that is not getting the proper internet. They don't know where I have to go for any treatment in a big hospital, where I have to save my money.
Yeah.
It's not available.
Absolutely.
It's not available, even though university is nearby. So I started a center called Societal Transformation Center. But my teachers should go to the society.
Okay.
Rather than the teaching. You practically observe that what they are looking for. Even today, you can see the DST. I don't know how they are coming forward to give you a grant to take the bioresources available in the rural area and convert into the product. For that, they want to give the money. So, such a way the people, the society should work. The society should come forward with my teacher, and teachers should associate with the society. That is very. I can say, I don't know how many of you know that. Tindukal, a place called near Madurai, Tindukal. The Tindukal lock is very famous. It's available throughout the world. Today, the technology is not available. We are going for Navtar. Why? Why our technology is not taken properly by our teachers to my students? Why they are not developing the technology further? These are the questions. How it's possible? My teachers should always oriented with my society. They have to learn. They have to study. What are the technology available in our country? No need to go for everything by Western. I told them, okay, how much money we are putting, how much universities are there. A small country like Thailand, they are higher in patent, property right. But now India fight for their own product in the law of court. I can say neem. I can say, other product, Indian product taken by other countries.
Yeah.
Why? Where we got the failure? It's because of my teacher, I can say. Right? So this type of things should come forward. I don't know that where is the gap. Right? So if you are saying industry, they need a person. Yeah. Taking the students and giving the training under them only they are going for the industry. No need. As Professor Jayant rightly told that, in abroad, the students immediately coming with the skill and they are going to the industry. No need to waste what you call the time. But that opportunity is not there. Yeah. Even I can appreciate some of the university in the northern side. I visited Pune and I visited even Gujarat, where the industries are available inside the university. L&T is available, Philips are available. What they are telling that this is my requirement.
Yeah.
Kindly train your student and give back to me. Then, I mean, as I told that 900 to 1,000 universities are there. How many universities are having such a opportunity or the facilities for my students? But always what we are telling that finding the fault on students.
Yeah.
No. But another very important thing, whatever the change you want to give, it should come from the school. I mean, if you are giving after 12 years, giving to the college or giving to the university, if you want to change that complete model or structure, definitely it's not possible.
Agree.
So these are the things we have to think about it. I mean, other than the online, even they are asking the question. Online, there is one statement here I am seeing that. Online, definitely, right, in the memorizing that all the books is going to come out because of the online. It's true. So, there are good positive points are there in online education. But bring out the technology to my village. My last student of my rural village should get the internet, then kindly bring out your technology. That is my view.
Agree with you, sir. You talked about inclusion in education, which is so important in today's time. Rana, would you like to launch the second question of the poll? What do our audience think about the future of universities for us?
So
would you launch the second question?
Mm-hmm. Yes, here's the question. So yes, you guys can see it. So yes. It says, are Indian universities prepared to go digital? Yes, no, not sure. So just, we will give you 30 seconds, fill in your answers, and then we'll see what the result is.
And as people are filling up the answers there, my next question to you, Professor Sonwalkar, is, so I just want to switch gears at this point in time and want to, so if all of us are aware that just before COVID, automation, digitalization, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of these was already causing a lot of disruption in the world of work. The COVID crisis has actually accelerated that change. We are seeing that because of this COVID crisis, we have started seeing lots of people losing jobs, job duration has started becoming a problem. The lifespan of an organization has started coming down. It's not only about performance management anymore, but it's also about resilience of an organization, which is becoming very important. In the current schema of things, where employment is shifting from a lifetime contract to something like a taxi cab short-term relationship, continuous learning is going to become very, very important for every employed individual. People have to continuously learn, pick up new skills, not only adjacent skills, but also diametrically different skills. People have to pick up multi-skilling is something which is going to make people more resilient. And hence, we'll start seeing employed learners and the emergence of the employed learners who would want to come back to a service provider who can actually train him on more skills. In the older days, it was only the private, non-institutional service provider who actually focused on that part of the segment and provided upskilling and repair and upgrade type of services to employed learners. One of the researches that we did at School Guru about a year back said that in about 2024, the number of employed learners in this country is going to outnumber the number of traditional learners in this country. That's the type of surge that we are going to see in this employed learner space. I'm not too sure if Indian universities are ready to service this class of learners. Are they ready with their products? Because the requirements of those type of people are very different. They're not looking at a 3 years long program. They need something which is always on the go, online, on site, on the job, crowdsourced, gamified, modular, multimodal. They're looking at a different type of organization course, which is where the admissions are around the year, examinations online. They're looking at a very different type of a product. Are Indian universities ready for that? Or are they getting ready for such a product? Just before you take that question up, Rana, would you want to pick up would you want to show us the results of that poll?
Yes, quickly, here we have the result. Yes. So can you guys see?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
So we see almost
Surprisingly equal number of people saying yes and no.
Yeah, it's really one third for all three.
Thank you so much, Rana. Yeah. So Professor Sonwal, coming back to you, what do you think Indian universities must do?
I got your point, and that is what I think I was mentioning too. That only IIMs have been catering to learners or educated learners. What you say, and this is very rightly that educated learners are the new segment of education has come up in the recent times, recent past, and recent future also. And this new segment will definitely matter a lot because they have two benefits. One is, number one, they are already educated, so you have to only sharpen their or hone their skills. And secondly, they have a paying capacity. So for private players like what Neeti is starting already, she has started, there is an excellent scope for new kind of business in the country. And answering your straight question that most of the Indian universities are not ready, number one. Number two, most of the Indian universities are not even thinking that this is going to be the new segment of education which they should cater to. You know what happens? Actually, when in early 40s, when the first management program started in India, as diploma in management, 1 year diploma, translated to 3 years diploma, translated to MBA program, 2 years full-time program, and then part-time program. You know, by 2000, almost all the part-time MBA programs in the country closed down because they were not getting students. So, you know, at one side that there is no MBA part-time program going on in the country, and at second side there is a huge demand for educated learners or experienced learners. So this is a new segment which you have rightly pointed out. You know what happened in when the Modi ji announced that the currency issue will be discontinued. At that point of time, suddenly we went digital on payments. Now this time in COVID we suddenly went online. Absolutely. In education.
Absolutely.
And I have been trying to convince people to take online lectures. People were not getting convinced for the last 10 years.
Yes.
And without even telling anybody, everybody has started using it. So that's what happens when the crisis comes.
Correct.
But this crisis has given, like many people ask me, what are the opportunities crisis has provided?
Yes.
The opportunities are for individual entrepreneurs to teach online.
Yeah.
The opportunities are for private entrepreneurs to teach educated youth or educated middle-aged people. And thirdly, people like School Guru or kind of companies, if you start 10 more these kind of companies, I think there is a scope for 10 more companies in the country at this point of time.
Thank you so much, sir. It's so well said. I mean, in India, we are characterized by the trait that we don't change for a better option. Most of the times, we change when we don't have an option. Yeah. So, my next question to you, Professor Krishnan, and maybe a tough one for you, because you lead one of the largest public universities in South India. Not only in India, but globally, we have seen a failure of financing of higher education. If you see, even in school education, only about 45% of Indian students go to government schools in India. Whereas in Japan, it's only about 8% students who go to private schools. The rest, everybody goes to government schools. In United States, it's only 15% students who go to private schools. The rest, everybody goes to government schools. In India, it's only about 45% people who goes to government schools. One of the failures of financing, which we have seen as a general public in India, is that because of this subsidy of government going only to public universities and public schools, the governance system hasn't performed as much because there's no fear of falling or a hope of rising for the people who work on these universities. But in times to come, as India is on the thresholds of signing the WTO agreement, if that happens, there's going to be a parity between a public sector university and a private sector university. We'll start seeing financial autonomy. Universities will have to stand on their own feet. In the new world of education, Professor Krishnan, because you lead one of the largest public universities, we will not see the type of universities that we are seeing today. For example, Delhi University, only about 3% of the entire budget of Delhi University is met through student fees. The rest 97% is government funded. In the new schema of things, when we are seeing an open market competition between private sector players and public sector players that we are going to see very soon, how important is governance in universities, in your opinion? Performance management, how important is it for universities, sir?
Yeah, I think it's a very good discussion, but at the same time, it's very difficult to answer for that also. Because now I can't find the fault of, coming out private university and private colleges and private schools. When I was in UK,
yeah,
the number of private schools are very less than the government public schools.
Mm-hmm.
The students are going more to the public school rather than the private schools. They are not going at all. But if you are coming to, particularly in Tamil Nadu or particularly in India, it's a vice versa. We are sending the school, our children to the private school rather than the public school. Why? Because the facilities what they are having, right? They are looking for that facilities, but they are not looking for that what the output they are getting. The facilities they are looking for, right? So they are going for the private school. I can tell you one very good example I can say.
Yeah.
When I was in Bharathidasan University, I was getting the Department of Biotechnology, right? We have only, the strength of that, what you call the allowing strength, only 20 students.
Oh.
Please listen very carefully, 20 students. The 20 students, what we are charging is per semester 7,000 rupees. That is totally, it comes around 28,000 rupees. Right? We have all the facilities, not I am talking about AC room or something like that, but we have all the facilities to work for biotechnology with the instrumentation, right? Which is very important for a course in biotechnology. But to fill up the 20 seats with the 28,000, it's very difficult for me when I was there. But a city college, a private college, where there is no facility, where they are also giving MSc biotechnology degree, there is no instrument, but they are charging near about 80,000 rupees for 2 years, where their number of application is there more than our university student, university admission. So what I find out there, the parents are looking for more facilities. The classroom should have the AC. The classroom should have that smart board. Classroom should have that drinking water with all the facility. That, hostels should have that a single bedroom house. And also they should have the AC and other facility. Even some of that college or private university, what type of food you need, it's available. Right? You can take the Western food, or you are having your McDonald's or KFC, whatever you want, that it's available inside the university. A country like India, at any time you feel that it's possible to attract the students to this way with the public university. I hope so, it's not possible. I can't find out that what you call the governance, right? But the educational system completely changed. That is why even I am afraid of it. I don't know how they are going to lead the life of a public university in future. Even they already signed that the foreign university, they can put the tentacle over Indian cities. For example, near Madurai Kamaraj University, Oxford University is coming. How I am going to get admission or getting the student for my university? I don't know that. How I am going to attract. Right? So these are, this question, I don't know that. I am not giving direct answer for you. But these are the baseline scratches we are having.
Yeah.
When I am talking about my public or private universities.
Though you have not answered that directly, sir, but there are a lot of insights in what you said.
Yes.
But taking from your question now, my next question to you, Neeti. Rana, this is my last question because I understand that we have running short of time now. My next question to you, Mrs. Sharma, is in the scheme of things where, as Professor Krishnan said, that there are so many international universities coming to India. The government of India, finance minister in a last speech said that she's going to issue 100 licenses to Indian universities to launch online programs. And they talked about ratings and NAC rankings and all of these. And when I looked at that category of universities who are most likely to get licensed to run online programs, surprisingly, 60% of those universities are private universities. Now, in that new world, how important, and Professor Krishnan talked about also his fear about how am I going to attract my students next time, right? And that's a fear which is looming in everybody's mind for sure in times to come. How important is it for universities to focus on their brand, on their marketing, on their positioning in times to come? Because we have never done this in the past. Universities never went out marketing themselves, thinking about. But in the Western countries they do. So how important is that in India in times to come?
I think it's very important to talk about what each university is doing and where they stand in the scheme of things, right? Traditionally, we set up a university and we know the students start coming in by word of mouth, right? And over a period of time, some bright students go out, get jobs. They send a lot more students. So, from one village, you may get 30 students into the university, and that's how it had all started. But now we have institutions who've been around for many, many years, for decades, right? But then if they don't change and if they don't adopt to the new world of education and new world of work or new world of learning, right, there will be this challenge. And Professor Krishnan said that, Oxford University coming next to his university, obviously they're going to spend a lot of money, time and efforts in talking about themselves, right, in attracting students. Good, bad, ugly is for everyone to find out later, right? But the whole perception of, it's a good brand and let me go and try it out is going to come in. But I think what is also important is, like you asked, Professor Krishnan, I think the governance of universities, the overall rating of universities, because, why should universities not be competitive? Right? We need to be competitive with each other. We need to tell the students where we stand in the competition and then leave it to the students and the parents and eventually the employers to decide who wants to come to us and who doesn't want to come to us. I think it's very, very important to talk about what we're doing.
Thank you so much. And so well said that it's not only about marketing. Yes,
Shantanu, if you allow me, I would like to speak about a line or two on this because I'm being a professor of marketing. I must say something on marketing of universities because actually everyone will have to learn to produce such products in the form of degrees, which is not only required by industry, which is also required by society. What Professor Krishnan has been propagating and supporting throughout his speech, throughout his opinion. So not only this, we'll have to not only produce products or degrees required by industry and society, we'll have to be concerned with what is going to be our concern for society itself.
Absolutely.
So that is important, and marketing automatically takes care of itself. Because if you are producing a product which is required by industry, there is no need for marketing. Else sales management comes in. Else sales management comes. So no need to selling. There is a need for marketing. So if you actually do marketing, you don't need to sell any product. And not only, we are not afraid of American universities coming, I bet, because they are going to be so costly. British universities, American universities, European universities, not even 1% of Indian population will go, because out of India, only 1 lakh students go out of country every year, only 1 lakh. If all universities come here, maximum 5 lakh students will be registered in those universities, and still there are 2 crores waiting for Indian degrees in India there up there. So being a populous country, going to be the most populous country in the world, we are not going to run short of students, but we will have to prepare ourselves to gear up for the future in the world. And we should create a world-class citizen, world-class student, world-class manager in our countries, in our universities. Not that the Indore-based or Bhopal-based or Bombay-based or Madurai-based student has to be internationally acceptable by all the universities simultaneously. So
very well said. Yeah. Very well said, sir. So you're saying that the outcome that these universities will deliver will be the best type of marketing which will do. And I completely agree with you, sir. And I was looking at the top 10 universities of the world list. And surprisingly, I found that the youngest university on that list is about 150 years old. It takes time to create universities. It takes time to create universities. It's not just going to be glib talking. It's not going to be just sharp sales. It's not going to be that easy. I'm sure I'm running short of time, Rana. I've got one last question for the audience. Would you like to pick up the last poll question? Yeah. And then maybe you could, I would sum it up. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I am launching the last question on your screen. So yes, so the question reads, what are the key ingredients that can make Indian education more competitive? Well, this is a multiple choice question. You can choose more than one option. One option is deregulation. Second is investment in better training our teachers. Third one is level playing field for both public and private institutions. Fourth is better industry academia connect. Fifth is digitalization of universities. And one option is focus on outcome. And the last option is all of the above. Please send in your votes. We'll wait for 30 seconds. And because, I mean, we are not, the discussion is so interesting that we don't want to stop. I get it, but we will, soon after this, we will take audience questions from the audience that you've sent in. And in case we miss a couple of, don't worry, we are going to write back to you and we will definitely get your questions answered.
Yeah, so you can possibly show us the results of the poll and then maybe take up a few questions.
Yeah,
over to you,
just 1 second. I see people. Yeah, just 1 second. Yes. Yeah. I'm sharing the result. Here it is.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Interesting insights.
Interesting, yeah.
So industry academia is almost the highest, and the last one is all of above. Yes, of course, but industry academia tops the list. So that is still missing in India. And surprisingly, Shantanu, it is missing in America. Every 10 years, US business schools have a debate, are they relevant? Yeah. MBA degrees are still relevant. Every 10 years they have a debate. And they still find that most of the MBA programs are not relevant, although the cost of MBA program they are up is 1 crore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Correct. Absolutely right, sir. Absolutely right. Over to you, Rana. I think we're running short of time. And if you want to take up a few questions from the audience.
Yes. So I'll quickly, so in the question answer, this Suhas Rao, he asks that, is it possible to impart technical or hard skills in the online format to enhance employability of the students?
Who is the question addressed to?
So he has not mentioned it, but I think Neeti can take this question. This seems very relevant to her field, or maybe Shantanu, you can also help.
I think let Neeti speak about it. She's an expert.
Okay, so it is not easy, because what's needed to simulate a real environment, there's a lot of things that are required. There is technology-based learning. There is, augmented reality that is required to create a life experience. I don't think it's going to replace, an online learning or of technical trades or hard skills completely by not going into the shop floor or not going into a lab. But I think about 70-80% of feel of the lab can be given to a student by use of technology, and the rest has to be done hands-on. I don't think we can replace hands-on completely, but can we augment that learning by use of technology? Absolutely, yes. There are lots of tools that are there in the market. whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, there's so many tools that are available for us to be able to create a life-like experience for students. So I think about 60-70% of the skills can be clearly imparted using technology.
Thank you, Neeti. So there's this question for Dr. Sonwalkar. It says, is COVID pandemic giving an opportunity to rethink and fix all the gaps in higher education, and more specifically the industry academia gap? So this is a question. Is it really so that COVID has made us?
Yeah, it has already served, because we got a lot of thoughts, and every university, every individual, every professor had initiated the thought process, thinking process, and they have come up with a lot of innovative solutions. Some may be implemented, some may not be implemented, but industry academia has been a question in India, which is a perennial question for the last 50 years, and it is going to be there for the next 20 years. So because that gap, unless we are not filling that gap, we will not be able to achieve the outcome-based education objective, which is very much required. And that's what I said in the beginning. Such companies which are going to bring industry academia together will be required, more numbers in India, and our all education has to be. And just a passing comment on what earlier person asked the question, that online education has now online labs, virtual labs. So even virtual labs can solve most of the problems of technical things, like for air, for space technology, whatever training we give, or for airlines we give training, we can give training to all areas on online method also.
Rana, if I can just answer the second question, adding to what Professor
please.
was saying, right? Industry academia, relationship has always been a bone of contention, right? Industry keeps saying academicians don't understand what we want. Academicians keep saying, oh, industry doesn't care, right? So, even when we started, we had this problem. But one way of probably resolving or getting industry to work hand in glove, with universities, is to probably create an integrated form of learning. So like for us, we created a work integrated learning or work-based learning programs where we got, students deployed as apprentice trainees with industry, right? And they're learning the entire degree program while they continue to be apprentices with organizations. So today we work with 600 organizations, right? And I think currently deploy about 50,000 plus apprentice trainees across the 600 private sector, organizations. So in a way, the industry continuously keeps giving us input on what we can add a value, what we can change, right? And what is their need. And in the process, over 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, the industry is actually working with us, with our university, to prepare workforce for their future needs.
Yeah.
So I think instead of just, of course, all universities have industry members on their governing body, board of management, board of studies, but maybe that's just not enough. Maybe we need, the industry to see outside in and inside out both ways, so that I think we can add value to the whole ecosystem.
Thank you, Neeti. I think we are short on time, but I think I want to take one general question. So this is for you, Professor Krishnan, sir. So it says that at present situation, what is the future of technical courses going to be?
Yeah, technical course, as I told, again, as Professor Jayant told, that it's possible to run any experiment through the online, and also Professor Neeti also told that it's possible to go for the virtual practical classrooms by online, but we need a lot of training for that. We need a lot of software for that. We need a lot of investment for that. So if it is available, then of course zoology, particular course, now we are changing all the practicals into virtual. No need to kill the animal nowadays. You can go for the dissections.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that, it's going. If it is coming to zoology, why not in technical courses? It's also possible. But I hope to confirm, or I hope to register here. For medical program, we hope to come to the lab, because we are going to play with the human, ethical, right? Where the situation is different. Okay?
Thank you, sir. I think we have many questions here, but as you all know that we are already short on time, and the discussion was so interesting that I didn't really find it appropriate to interrupt anyone, and I gently wrote that let's go to the end. But anyway, I think don't worry, all your questions are going to be answered, because we won't let the panelists run away without answering us. So obviously I'll write to them separately and we'll get your questions answered. And well, because it is 5:11 already, so thank you everyone for joining. So thank you, Professor Sonwalkar, thank you, Professor Krishnan, thank you, Neeti, and thank you, Shantanu. Thank you everyone for being here for the panel discussion, and for people.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Nanda.
much. Thank you so much.
And
Bye-bye.
thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Bye,
Thank
sirs.
Pleasure is all mine, and thank you everyone for joining in.